Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see everybody. It's been an inspiring day for me and got to meet a lot of new people, obviously listen to some sessions. So hopefully you'll learn something. I'm wondering, if people are here, the title of my talk, if I think I get it correct here, is How to Live a Simple Life in a Chaotic World. So does that mean we have a lot of simple people here? So I do a lot of walking around. Hopefully that doesn't bother you. But I really appreciate you all coming out because I was just listening to Rory, and it was just a good refresher, kind of where we're going in life and taking a look at it. So I'm Amish. We have 4 children. My wife will be coming here soon. And we live in Holmes County, Ohio. We used to say the world's largest Amish community, but I think Lancaster County, Pennsylvania has now outdone us, which, beside the point, it's not a big deal. But we live in Holmes County. We live on a homestead of 12 acres, 11.8 to be technical. And we have a couple dairy cows. We have some beef cattle, some pigs, chicken, turkey, mostly for our own use. We make a little bit of money off of it, but we don't make a living off of our homestead. So we have a booth here called Tiny Home Living. We build tiny homes and studio sheds and some animal shelters. So if you are in need of that, we're all the way over towards the end. Before you head into the food court, we're about the third to last booth on the left. You can find us there. So, with being Amish, I met Rory here a couple years ago, and we just got to know each other, and I think we appreciate a lot of the same values. You may think that the Amish have all the answers, and we don't. But we have learned some things along the way, and we're also battling with some of the same things that everybody else is battling with. If you heard the Doughertys talk, good friends of ours, they talked about that our population is down to less than 10% are in agricultural. So there's also, like the rest of the world, there's also some renewal there, trying to go back to what we may have lost some of it. I don't think we've lost all of it like some people have, but we've got people going this direction, then we've got people going the other direction. So I'd like to just focus on a couple things. A lot of the things that I'll talk about are convictions that we've formed along the way, and I think convictions are the most important thing in this journey. Is we won't be competing. We can't compete with the jazz and everything that's out there, but if we form convictions in our heart, we can make the right decisions. How to live a simple life in a chaotic world. So I'm going to start, I've kind of done 3 things on how to live a simple life. The first thing that we're going to talk about is digital technology. The second thing we're going to talk about is simplifying family time. And then we're going to sum it up with tips to live the simple life. So why do we want to talk about digital technology? I don't have it in my notes, and I don't know that I can quote it, but January 7th of 2007, Steve Jobs, the CEO of Apple, stepped onto the stage in San Francisco and introduced the Apple iPhone. And in 2016, Time magazine did an article titled, "The 50 Most Influential Gadgets of All Time." This was only 9 years later, and the Apple iPhone was the number 1 on the 50 most influential gadgets of all time within 9 years after it was introduced. We're addicted to it. We're connected to it. If we walk into a restaurant and we see families out for dinner, are they having family time or are they having screen time? We see it all over the place. So a couple things that we can look at there is, I do have it in my notes. This is what Time magazine said. The iPhone popularized the mobile app, forever changing how we communicate, play games, shop, work, and complete many everyday tasks. But more than that, it fundamentally changed our relationships to computing information, and change likely that will have repercussions for decades to come. It changed the way that we relate to people. It changed the way that we do communication. So when we think about communication, there's been studies done, and when we communicate, 7% of what we say is actually the way that we communicate. The words that we say, only 7% of it's conveyed. 38% of it is the tone of voice, and believe it or not, 55% of it is our body language. So let me give you a little example. I love you. I love you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that. The conveyance, and when we talk face to face, when we look the other person in the eye, when we feel the emotion that they feel, when we hear, we stop and listen to what they're truly saying, we can connect. We are communicating, we're connecting in body and in spirit. We can understand each other. Which brings us to, so last fall, our 12-year-old son, Kenneth, shot his first deer. So we were out in the woods. He was all excited to get home and tell Mom and his sisters what happened. You know, we got home, and he could relate the story. He went through all the details of what happened. They were excited. He was excited. The emotions were there. We were having it together. Would that same feeling have happened if we would have sent a text message home that said, Kenneth shot a deer? It's eliminating some of that connection. We're built, we are designed by God to have a relationship with each other. God said when he created Adam and he created Eve, he said it's not good that man should be alone. So we're created to have the relationship with each other. And as a society, the more we rely on electronic communication, the more it will break that down. Now, I know I'm talking about a lot of negative things about digital technology. I'm sure you can all think about positive things. So as we go through here, one of the things that we think about is when we belong, we're all designed to belong to something greater than ourselves, something that's more than us. And when we belong to something, we also have a responsibility. And with that responsibility comes accountability. For example, we all grew up in a family. We were all part of a greater something than ourselves. We all had rules to live by. We all had, if we didn't follow those rules, there were consequences. Well, today, there's a community online for pretty much anything, for tiny homes, for gardening, for homesteading, you name it, you can find it. And you can make connections, you can find positive things, you can learn things. But it's not the true community that we have when we're rubbing shoulders, neighbor to neighbor, brother to brother, father to son. It's not the same relationship. And the other thing it does, it comes without accountability. If I don't agree with him, I'll just drop out. There's no accountability. There's nothing that really, I can just kind of go my way. I'm not losing my neighbor. And we kind of lose the art of getting along with each other. We lose the art of getting along with each other. So, I talked about the negative things. There's positive, there's things where you can text message addresses, there's tons and tons of information out there that you can get, true or false. So how do the Amish navigate the technology? One of the things, as we go through life, how do we do it and still survive? And if you talk to an Amish community, if you talk to 5 people, just like we have here, we'll probably all have varied opinions and varied ways that we look at it. There's 2 ways that we try and look at things when new things come up and the way that we do life. Number one, spiritually, how will it affect us? Number two, how will it affect our family life? So for a good example, we drive a horse and buggy. We don't drive a car. So how did we get here? We had a fast horse. So what we've noticed over the years, our forefathers chose not to drive a car because it's not that we feel that the car is a sin or that anybody that drives a car is a sinner, but more that we see if we drive a horse and buggy, it will keep the family life intact. We won't come and go at ease as much if we have a horse and buggy. And how many of you can drive your car down the road with your child on your lap? We can all be together going a slow pace down the road. So those are some choices we think about as we go through life. So how does that transfer over into technology? So there's about 3 rules. I'm gonna give this quote. Donald Craybill, he's a student of the Amish. He's wrote a lot of books. And this one, he wrote a book called What the Amish Teach Us. And in his one paragraph, he said, controlled access to motor vehicles keeps faith with tradition while giving just enough freedom to maneuver in the larger society. It allows use of modern technology without being enslaved by it or allowing it to fray the social fabric. So I should clarify, we don't drive a horse or we don't drive a car, but we hired a driver to bring us here. So in the Amish community, there's taxis that make a living taking us from one place to the other, taking us a couple hundred miles if we need to go. So going back to the digital technology and some of the guidelines that our church has and some convictions that we've formed personally, 3 things. One is, I do not own a device that allows me to surf the World Wide Web. That's one of probably the most overriding guideline that I have. I do not own a device that allows me to surf the World Wide Web. Now there's ways that come, and I'll come to that later. So some of the things that we can think about is the addiction, the pornography, the rabbit holes that we go down if we have the World Wide Web at our fingertips. The other thing is, I don't want to have a phone in my pocket that I can do anything else but call and receive voicemail. Text messaging, I don't do text messaging. And there's going to be differences in opinions there, but I like to live in the moment. How many times have we stood talking to somebody, their phone would ping, they'd bring it out. They were present in body, but absent in mind. We lose that connection, and it takes time. Like, we need to reel them back in. Are you here? And sometimes I'm not sure if they're searching something that we're talking about in the conversation, or if they're responding to that text message. We don't know. They're present in body, but absent in mind. So I don't want to have a phone in my pocket that does anything else but call and receive voicemail. The third thing is, I rarely use my cell phone outside of business hours. Leave it on the desk, leave it in the drawer, keep that family time, keep it together. And I'm going to say I rarely use it. I brought it along today so we have a communication so we can connect. So how do we do business within these guidelines? I have a computer, and it's locked down. The only thing that I can access is my email. So I communicate back and forth, and that computer's on my desk. It's not in my pocket. It's not going with me. So I have email where I can communicate back and forth. Marketing, I have a website. I have a social media site. Tiny Home Living, you're going to see Facebook and what's the other one? Instagram. I can't even see it, but I have a marketing company that takes care of it. I don't have to worry about it. I don't need it in personal life, but it's there if people want to access my products. I mentioned earlier that Google has a lot of information available out there. So there's 2 ways that we have worked at where we can access some of that information without going online. One is there's a company that does online research, and I have a monthly subscription of so many hours. I send them an email, I tell them, find this and this article or this product, and they'll send me an email and says, here's the options to buy. They have my credit card, and they have my shipping address, and they'll purchase it for me. If there's anybody that would like to do that, you can write this down. AskSunday.com. Believe it or not, they're a company out of India. I'm sure there's probably some state companies that do that as well. But it allows me to use the tool that's out there, but not be enslaved by it. The second one option that I use, and this is a company that does a lot of work for the Plain communities, is I don't know how they've done it on their site, but I can send them an email to their email address, auto@ibuyfax.com. AUTO, auto, at IBYFAX.com. And what I will do is I can put a link in the subject line, and they've got a system where they'll send back a picture of that website. There's some workarounds where we don't have to be enslaved by it. Some simple tools that we've been granted that we can use. So some of the things to think about. What are some of the things that we can do to eliminate our, do I call it enslavement, our addiction? Can we shut it off during meal times? Can we have certain family times where we're not interrupted by it? What are the things that are most important to us? I'm going to follow here with a quote. This is a book. If anybody would like to dig deeper into technology, The Tech Tsunami and Surviving the Tech Tsunami by Gary Miller. And this is a quote that he uses in the end. Our churches must be awake, aware, and actively addressing this issue, but we cannot stop there. Not everyone is blessed to be part of a fellowship that is seriously confronting this problem. Therefore, it is essential that we prepare personally for the coming onslaught, regardless how often your congregation meets, and it should be often, or how much dialogue you have, and there should be plenty, or how much thought you give to collective agreements, and that should be much. Ultimately, it is your personal connection with God that will empower you to survive and thrive in this tech tsunami. And I'm going to give a little story here. It's interesting how God works. I was thinking about this, and there's a devotional that I do every evening. And last night, this is a paragraph that was in a devotional. When we think about how much we're surrounded by it, and what can we do to make a difference? What can we do to make a difference? There's this paragraph here. It says, in a gun factory, a bar of steel was weighing 500 pounds was suspended by a chain. Beside it, an average-sized cork was hanging by a silk thread. So we have this 500-pound bar of steel with a little cork by a silk thread. The cork was swung gently against the bar, which remained motionless. For 10 minutes, the cork, with rhythmic regularity, continued to strike. Then the heavy piece of steel began to move slightly. At the end of an hour, both objects were swinging together like the pendulum of a clock. If we can form convictions with a continued regularity, we can make a difference. We can make a difference. So we're going to move on to simplifying family time. What's family time? You know, we tend to think family time is on the beach of Hilton Head, in the mountains of the Great Smoky Mountains, the Rocky Mountains, Yellowstone National Park, and those are all good vacation spots. We have other opportunities to have family time that's a lot less expensive and will be just as memorable. You know, I can remember growing up, we all tend, as we're boys, you know, we tend to think about Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer and those adventures out there, and life would be greater if we wouldn't be working on the farm. I grew up on a farm of 100 acres. We'd milk cows in the morning. We'd milk cows in the evening. And, you know, there's things that we did that day that I remember more than any of the vacations. We didn't take a lot of vacations, but any of the vacations that we did. You know, one of the things that I can remember, every morning and evening, we'd get up. You know, my dad, there was 11 of us children. Our dad would be on the bottom of the steps. We're upstairs, and he'd be hollering our names to get up in the morning at 4:30, 5 o'clock. We'd get out, sleepily we head to the barn. He was preparing the milk, the cans there to get our morning's milk. And there'd be 6, 7 of us would be sitting beside the cows, and we'd be milking by hand. And every evening we'd do the same thing. And the conversation would flow. We would have that family time together. And there were the young ones that weren't milking yet, were running around. They were doing the chores of their rabbits. You know, their mom rabbit may have little babies. And then we had the youngest one. I can remember we'd have a little milk stool there, and she'd be sitting in the barn. We have a little baby, a baby swing hanging from the barn beam. Or the youngest baby, 18-month-old, a year old. You know, these are stages of our life. But those are things that we remember. We were working together. We were having family time together. They're precious. Yeah, today, there's probably nobody here. Well, there may be, but there's very few of us that wake up and milk 12 cows in the morning by hand. But there's other things that we can do. You know, there's things on the homestead, moving the cows, moving the fence together. There's things that we can do when we're butchering chickens. You know, myself and our son will be out catching them, putting them in the killing cones. My wife and the girls will be over. They'll be taking out the insides and cleaning them up, cutting them up. There's things that we can do together as a family. We're simplifying family time. Yes, we'll take a family vacation. This is actually a family vacation for us. We enjoy coming down here. Last fall, Hocking Hill State Park, one day, very simple, out in nature, simplifying family time together. So, one of our daughters, as I mentioned earlier, we live in an Amish community, and we don't all homestead. We have traditional people living on an acre or two, barely gardening. So, one of our schoolmates said, "It sounds like you have a lot of fun on the farm, on our homestead." And her response was, "Yeah, but it's a lot of work." And so we can't have fun, but it's not going to be easy. We have to choose to do the right things. At the end of the day, if we simplify our family time, we can wind down on the front porch with a cool glass of milk. We can watch the sun descend behind the tree line. We're thankful for another day that we could spend with the people that we love, doing the things that we love, tending to nature of the things created by a God that loves us. It's all in choice on where we go. So we talk about tips to live the simple life. We look at our country, and you probably wouldn't be here. We think that we may be in chaos. There's things happening here. There's things happening there. We can look at broken homes. We can talk about the bickering and the bantering going on in Congress. We can talk about all the negative that's happening out there. Let's for one moment, let us think how it would look in 20 to 30 years from now if all our moms and dads would be living harmoniously together, raising and loving their children. How would it look in 20 to 30 years from now? Abraham Lincoln gave us this quote, "The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world." We have the opportunity to change the world at our fingertips today by the generation that we're raising. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. We're given seeds. We're given the opportunity. Let's imagine if we have a watermelon seed. We don't look at that seed and think of all the hard work that goes into it. But what we imagine on the other side is we imagine a nice, juicy slice of watermelon. And we bite off, and we can have the watermelon juice dribbling down our chin, down into the grass. When we have that seed, that's what we're imagining. But from there, we have a vision what we want in the end. We know that we want to plant that seed. We want to nurture that seed. We know that it's going to take some hard work. It's going to take some weeding. It's going to take some cultivation. But in the end, we're going to be rewarded by it. That same way we're given seeds that we have the opportunity. We can envision, I think there's everybody that here that has children, our goal would be to have adults that are a positive part of society. That's our vision. We create a goal in the end and we strive towards that. We nurture growth. We have to pull the weeds. There's some bad habits. There's some hard choices that we sometimes have to make. We have to nurture that growth. And then at some point, we're going to release them. At some point, we're going to release them and they're going to make their own choices. Today, when they're in our hands, we have our responsibilities. We can blame Congress, we can blame our lawmakers, but I'm convinced the solution lies in our homes and our parents of today. A couple weeks ago, one of our ministers gave us this quote: "Raise your children and you can enjoy your grandchildren. Spoil your children and you will have to raise your grandchildren." Raise your children and you can spoil your grandchildren. Spoil your children and you will have to raise your grandchildren. And he noted in the end there, by that time we're probably wore out. So one of the things that we can look at, tips to live the simple life: eliminate the noise. Where did my time? There we go. I was wondering where my timer got to. Eliminate the noise. We're bombarded with noise all over in every direction that we look at. We think about the politics. We have politicians that are wanting our votes, red or blue. They're blaming everybody else. They're saying, I've got the solution. There's lots of noise out there. We've got the world news that's being blasted in front of us all the time. What's happening? They want us to, we're worried about it. We're living in a fearful life. We've got marketing. We've got marketing that is promising us happiness when we buy their product. I was thinking about this yesterday afternoon when we're driving back from here to the hotel. We meet an Amazon van, and you know what it said on the side of the Amazon van? It said, "Warning, contents may cause happiness." Stuff will not bring joy and happiness. Stuff will not bring joy and happiness. When we talk about politics, I've lived through 6 presidential elections, or was it 6 different presidents? And every presidential election, you hear the noise of, we've got to vote blue or we've got to vote red. If this doesn't happen, this is going to happen and it's going to be the end. It's going to be terrible. And maybe it's been different for you, but I live on Cement Bridge Road, and very little has changed each time a new president comes in on Cement Bridge Road. There may be some more longer effects, but very little changes from one democracy to the other. But you know where change happens? When men and women roll up their sleeves and we work together as a neighborhood. We work together as a community. And if we eliminate that noise, we can see the difference. We can see the need. But if we're bombarded with it and we're living in a fearful world, it's a hard time. It's hard for us to see it. It's hard for us to see the positive happening. So if we can eliminate that noise, we can see areas where we can make a difference. We talked about stuff. Less is more. When we think about marketing, I used to do marketing. I've got my own business. So marketers are trying to win you by the emotions. They're promising happiness. One thing that a rule that I like to live by: if you're making a major purchase, write it down. Give it a week, give it 2 weeks. Don't buy on impulse. Don't buy on impulse. It will not bring happiness. If you need it, buy it, but give it some time. Give it some time. So probably one of the most important things that I want you all to take away, there's two things that I want everybody to take away, and the next one is one of them. We nurture the growth. I talked about that, the opportunity that we have. We eliminate the noise. We need to create a vision. Narrow our focus. What should we be focusing on? What should we be thinking about? How should our life look? Did you know that Elon Musk doesn't own his house that he lives in? The reason that he doesn't own his house that he lives in, he said, and I want to preface this, we may not agree with everything that he does, but I do appreciate what he said. He said, if I own the house, I have to take care of it, and I'm distracted with what my focus is in life. And that's put man on Mars. But he's got a narrow focus, and he's eliminating what will distract him. So we want to create and narrow our focus. In business, I've been in a couple different businesses where we create a mission, vision, and values statement. We want to see where we want to go. We create our focus. So one of the first things that we want to do is create a great purpose. And I'll come back. I'm going to walk through these 4 steps, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you an example of what we've put together. Our great purpose, our true north. This is why I wake up every morning. This is why I do what I do. We want to sit down and we want to spend some time figuring out truly what is my life all about. What should I be doing? And Rory summed it up well. He said, make a plan and then let God change it. Failing to plan is planning to fail. The human nature will have a tendency to go the easy route. We will do the easy things unless we have a goal in life. And when I think about a goal in life, I'm thinking about the great purpose. It's great. There's something greater than us. 5 to 10 years down the road when we talk about the great purpose. The next one is our vision. How does it look today? How does it look today in achieving that great purpose? What do we need to change so that we can be there? Create a vision. When we create that great purpose, we spend some time. If you have a spouse, work together with the spouse. Figure out what that is as a family. Write it down. Lay it aside for a week. Come back. If you feel the same way, leave it and move on to the vision. Now, what should we be changing today? How should that look? What should we be doing? And then from there is the mission. How do we act? What are we doing today? Very similar to the vision. I'll give you an example. So the last one is the values. What are the values that we live by? So let me give you an example. So this is our family pathway. This is not going to be yours. You're going to create your own. But I'm going to give you an example. If you don't write it down, you don't have something to come back to double check where you're going, to do a recheck occasionally. So our great purpose. And as you notice, we go down through here, it has nothing to do with homesteading. So that's why we're thinking about it's greater than us. Our 5 to 10 year goal, our children are still on the younger side. Raise our children to become responsible adults that God can use by creating an environment where we can serve others. Raise our children to become responsible adults that God can use by creating an environment where we can serve others. Wherever you're at in your stage in life, it's going to be different. You may be later in life, it may be different. Ours is going to change. So how does that look today? What do we do if we can hang that big goal out there and go on in life? But we need to make a change. We need to make incremental changes to get there. What do we do today? Our vision is to have a family environment where everybody is relaxed. We work and play alongside each other as we continuously grow our character. As we continuously grow our character. Do we get it done every day? Do we have a relaxed family life and environment? Not always. But we have something that we can check ourselves with. Where are we going? And then, how do we do that? We serve by creating a schedule that allows time for others. I wish I could say I have a schedule that always allows time for others, but that's a goal that we have. Create a schedule that allows time for others. Who would wish for 25 hours in a day? We all have 24. We all have the same amount. We all admire people that are always there, who can always spend time, who can listen, who can come and help. Create a schedule where we have time to serve others. The values that we live by, and these will, again, they'll be different, but these are things where we won't compromise. Honesty. We're truthful and transparent in everything that we do. Serving, we intentionally help others. If we're not intentional about helping others, we're going to go the easy route, and it's that self-serving person in us that we tend to always look for ourselves, but we intentionally help others. The golden rule, we act like we want others to act. Our actions welcome others to act. Again, we're that little cork that is rhythmically, continuously making a difference. Eventually, it'll spread out. Spiritual, we feel this is an important part. We immerse ourselves daily in God's Word. We find our true north, we find our direction. And then humility, we focus on others. We focus on others. So coming back, sit down, write down your great purpose. Where do you see yourself in 10 years from now? And God may change that from here to there. But where do you want to go? Create a true north. And then what do you need to change today? What will you do today to do that? And what are some of the values that you will live by? So we nurture the growth. We nurture what we have in our hands today. We eliminate the noise, and then we narrow the focus. We create a vision. And then the last one, invite the stillness. Invite the stillness. Take time to recharge daily. Set a time where you can sit down, shut everything else off, and just think. Just think. And you can take time to evaluate where you're going in life. Let the peace of God work in your souls. Breathe deeply. Be still and know that I am God. Let God speak to you. Enjoy the fullness of His relationship. He's there. He wants to help us all. Enjoy the relationship of God. We talked about we want to create a focus. We want to create where we want to go. We want to create that narrow focus, and then we do it. I mentioned there's two things that I want you to take away. Narrow the focus is one of them. Create a vision. The second one is change what you can and let go of the things that you cannot change. Here's a saying that I like. When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I found it was difficult to change the world, so I began to focus on my town. I tried to change the nation. When I found that I couldn't change the nation, I began to focus on my town. I couldn't change the town, and as an older man, I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realized the only thing I can change is myself. Suddenly, I realized that if I long ago had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family and I could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the nation, and I could have indeed changed the world. Be the change we want the world to be. Change what we can and let the rest of it go. When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. I found it was difficult to change the world, so I tried to change my nation. When I found I couldn't change the nation, I began to focus on my town. I couldn't change the town, and as an older man, I tried to change my family, and now as an old man, I realize the only thing I can change is myself. Be the change we want to be. I'd like to give a passage out of John 12, verse 23, 24, 25, and 26. Jesus said this to his disciples. He said, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. Unless we die to self, we are living in this world alone. But if it die, and it bringeth forth much fruit, he that loveth his life shall lose it, and he that hateth his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal. If any man serve me, let him follow me. Where I am, there shall also my servant be. And if any man serve me, him will my Father honor. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat die, we will be alone. But if we die, we bring forth much fruit. If we love our life, we will lose it. If we lose it in this world, we can keep it in eternity." I'd like to close in wishing everybody a bountiful harvest, a fatted calf in the fall, a pig ready for slaughter, and a quiver full of children enthusiastically tend to their chores. Teach their children to tend enthusiastically to their chores. It takes one generation to lose something. And believe it or not, in one generation, we can also restore it. It takes hard work. We're teaching today's generation. That will teach tomorrow's generation. Sobering. Let's be the change. Last but not least, I want to say this. Have no greater joy than to hear that our children walk in the truth. And there's no greater reward than to enter the kingdom of heaven and to have our children enter the kingdom of heaven. We can do all this. We can plant seeds. We can raise our own food. But in the end, what's eternity? Wishing everybody God's blessings. I think we have some time to open up some questions. We do have some minutes, some time for questions. If we have a couple questions, we'll try and answer them.